Hello, I'm Alex, and I used to live in San Diego, California. I worked as an escort for a few years, but I got out of that life. It was rough. Clients mistreated us, and there were threats from guys who wanted to control us. It was a mess, and I barely made enough to get by. Then something happened to Scarlett. That was the last straw. One week, I couldn't work because a client went too far and hurt me. I was still recovering when my former colleagues came to check on me. That's when I heard about Scarlett. She was about 40, but she looked amazing, slender, almost perfect. She had this strong personality. No one messed with her. She was known for standing her ground. One time, she pushed aside another worker who tried to take her spot. It wasn't a fight, just a few words and a look, and the girl backed off. Scarlett commanded respect, and we all knew it. My former colleagues told me what happened. Scarlett just disappeared one night. It was weird because she was always there, like clockwork. Some thought she found a client who took her away from that life. Others said maybe she saved enough to go back to where she came from. No one really knew, but the stories got darker as time went on. Days turned into weeks, and no one heard from her. Some said the last time they saw her, she got into a car with a man who wasn't from around here. Others claimed they heard screams in a nearby alley that night. But in our world, screams in the dark were pretty common. If one of us was in danger, we'd help, but beyond that, everyone just tried to survive. It had been almost 2 months, and Scarlett's absence left a strange void. Some tried to take her spot, but none lasted long. They said it felt cold, like something invisible was pushing them away. At first, I thought it was just stories to keep her legend alive, but then the sightings started. It was a cold night when someone reported seeing her. "Scarlett's back," they said. She looked the same, elegant, hair perfectly permed, a cigarette between her fingers. But something was off. She didn't speak or wave to the men passing by. It was like she was only visible to us. The stories got more frequent. Several girls said they saw her standing on the corner, waiting for a client, but no one dared to get close. They said her presence felt different. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were empty. The only one who got close was Krisa. She told us her lips were trembling. She said it was like the air froze around her. Scarlett stood there, motionless, under the streetlight. Krisa watched from a distance, trying to convince herself it was really her. But when a car pulled up and the driver tried to talk to her, Scarlett didn't move. The car sped off, and when Krisa looked back, Scarlett was gone. The rumors got worse. Some said bad luck followed anyone who got too close. One girl claimed she saw a man who tried to talk to Scarlett get into an accident minutes later. Others said she just vanished into thin air. A few weeks later, one of the girls, desperate for money, decided to take Scarlett's spot despite the warnings. She didn't last long. They found her in a nearby alley with marks on her neck, like someone tried to strangle her. She didn't die, but she said she felt cold, clammy hands around her neck. After that, no one tried to take Scarlett's place again. Her corner stayed empty, except for her. Some nights, people still saw her, always in the same spot, with her cigarette and that lost look. I don't know what happened to her the night she disappeared, or why her ghost seems tied to that place. Maybe she can't rest. Maybe it wasn't her time to die, and now she's trapped, repeating an existence she couldn't leave behind. I came back 2 nights after what happened, but I didn't see her. One morning, when it was really cold, I smelled her perfume mixed with cigarette smoke. It gave me chills. I took it as a warning to leave that life behind. I've been gone for 2 years now. I earn enough to get by without having to sell myself. Sometimes, I wonder if Scarlett's spirit is still out there watching over us. If you're enjoying the video, please subscribe the channel for future videos, and like and share with your friends. Hi, I'm Yadira, and life has taken me down paths I never imagined. When I was young, I dreamed of a simple, comfortable life, far from the hardships of poverty. But reality hit hard, and soon I found myself surviving by catering to powerful men. Being an escort wasn't something I was proud of, but it kept me comfortable and my bank account growing. until I discovered that some paths lead straight to the abyss. It all started innocently enough. My clients were important men, businessmen and politicians who hid their vices behind expensive suits and fake smiles. They treated me kindly, almost with respect, but desire always shone in their eyes. One night, a regular client who always paid generously invited me to a private meeting with other men like him. There would also be one of the girls I knew. I agreed without thinking too much. The pay was good, and I figured it was a one-time thing. Besides, these exclusive meetings were usually lucrative. The house where the meeting took place was majestic, with endless hallways and ornate decor that felt suffocating. From the moment I walked through the door, I felt a chill. It was like death was lurking in that place. The men, though smiling and happy, moved with a calculated stiffness, like puppets following a script. They led me to a large room lit with candelabras that cast eerie shadows on the walls. In the center of the room was an altar decorated with symbols I didn't recognize, but that made my skin crawl. I was dazzled by the wealth and power in that room. As I was admiring the place, 2 more women entered. We all wore the same outfit. They knew each other, so I separated to continue exploring. There was a half-open door, and I got closer to see what was inside. That's when I realized this group of powerful men belonged to something much darker than a simple business and pleasure meeting. Then I heard a woman's voice calling me. She seemed upset that I was snooping. I followed her and the other girls to another room where everyone was already gathered. What happened next still haunts my nightmares. They forced me to stay while they performed a ritual. I was trembling. I didn't understand the words they were saying, but the air was filled with a strange smell, like fresh blood. I watched in horror as they offered animal sacrifices and burned objects that seemed to hold deep meaning for them. At one point, a presence filled the room. It was something those present were waiting for. What I saw was a darkness that covered the entire room, with only the flickering of the fire visible in the distance. Those people were paying tribute to pure evil. And then, suddenly, a man's scream pierced the air. In those moments, the light returned, illuminating everything. I saw that man clutching his throat, trying in vain to stop the blood from flowing. I knew that client. No one helped him. Instead, we all left the room as if nothing had happened. Everyone gathered their things and left. They even assigned me a vehicle along with the 3 girls, but I could tell they had been through this before. When I got home, I took out the envelope with that night's pay. There was more than agreed upon. From that night on, I began to have nightmares. It seemed like my life was slipping away. What I thought would be my only entry into that world of the powerful was wrong. That night was the first of many. No matter how much I denied it or tried to escape, they always found a way to bring me back. They knew where I lived, who I spoke to, and even the places I tried to hide. They threatened me, saying they would destroy me if I spoke or tried to run away. Over time, I became a shadow of my former self. I slept little and lived in constant fear, knowing that any attempt to escape would be futile. But what terrified me most were the increasingly darker and more violent rituals. I saw things no one should ever see, women and men being used as offerings, invocations that shook the foundations of that place, and at the center of it all, a figure of pure evil. It was during one of those rituals that desperation pushed me to do the unthinkable. The men were in another room preparing another ceremony, and I, trembling, approached the altar. In my mind, I repeated a plea I didn't fully understand. Escape, disappear, become invisible to them. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like something was listening. That night, when the ritual ended, something had changed. The men let me go without insisting, as if they didn't see me. They didn't look for me the next day or the next week. It was as if I had ceased to exist to them. I emptied my savings and left the city. I changed my identity and crossed borders until I arrived in Spain, a place where nobody knew me. Here, far from everything, I found a peace I never thought possible. But that peace comes with a price. Sometimes at night, I feel its presence. I don't see it, but I know it's there, watching me, reminding me that my freedom wasn't a gift but a pact. I don't know what I offered in return, but every day I'm grateful to be alive and far from that hell. Now I live in a small town surrounded by strangers who don't ask questions. I've reinvented myself, building a new life where I try not to think about the past. But there are nights when I wake up suddenly, knowing that even though I'm far away, I'll never be truly free. The darkness has ways of claiming what is its own, and I know that sooner or later, I'll pay the price. Hey, my name doesn't really matter, but you can call me Pamela. I work as an escort, mostly for gentlemen, but sometimes for ladies too. The nights have always been my prison. They're the only way I can stay afloat. Even though they often drown me in uncomfortable silences, noises, and evasive glances, I never stop to think about the morality of what I do. Necessity makes me leave my apartment every night to find a living and send enough money to my sister for my daughter. But there was one night that broke all the rules. An experience that transformed my reality into horror. Something I still can't name. He was a recurring client, the kind who shows up once every 15 days. He always paid well, punctually, and with a kindness that was hard to find. He liked the company of all of us and wouldn't let just one of us monopolize him. He'd kiss her hand, and it was as if he were keeping a list of who would keep him company next. His apartment, located in an old building in the center of the city of Leon, Guanajuato, had an air of careless opulence. Thick rugs, antique furniture that each seemed to have its own story, and an eerie silence that hung in the air. From the first time I was there, something didn't feel right. I felt a cold that didn't match the weather outside. I told myself it was my imagination, a natural reaction to the nervousness of being in an unknown place. But with each visit, the feeling grew stronger. It all started with small details. Once, while I was waiting for him to finish getting ready in another room, I saw a shadow move in the hallway. There was no one else in the apartment. I can assure you of that. On another occasion, when I entered, the place had an old, sweet perfume that I couldn't identify. It seemed impregnated in the air, as if it belonged to someone who had been there long before me. Then the manifestations began and became more frequent. One night, while I was getting ready in the bathroom, I noticed that my reflection in the mirror didn't match my movements. For a moment, it was as if someone else was there, imitating me. I counted to 10, refusing to let fear take over. When I opened my eyes again, everything seemed normal, but the chills were still there. The worst happened during my last visit. I arrived at the apartment as usual, but something was different. Something was there that made me nervous. The lights were flickering more than usual, as if something was watching me. While I waited in the living room, I felt a presence behind me. When I turned, I saw a woman. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were filled with unspeakable pain. I wanted to scream, but my voice got caught in my throat. She was reaching out a hand towards me, and I could hear her voice, like a stifled whisper, repeating over and over again, "Help me." From her mouth came a black liquid, falling on her chest and dirtying her dress. Before I could react, she disappeared, leaving behind a feeling of emptiness and a rotten smell that filled me with fear, almost to the point of making me vomit. I tried to convince myself that it was just stress, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But unfortunately, the apparitions continued. In the master bedroom, another woman appeared, standing next to the bed. Her body seemed deformed, as if she had suffered a violent and terrible death. She made no movement, but when I turned around, I was petrified. The client never seemed to notice anything strange happening. His behavior was the same as always, kind and distant at the same time. But I could no longer ignore what was happening. Those women, or whatever they were not there by chance. The fear I felt was more than just earning my keep. That night, I felt it as a warning that if I stayed in that apartment, I would possibly end up like them. I did my job, but in those moments, the story of Beauty and the Beast crossed my mind. If I found out what happened to those women, I would possibly end up like them, for snooping around that damn man's apartment. When I returned home that night, I made a decision. No matter how much he paid me, I was not going to go back. My life, although full of loneliness and financial difficulties, still belonged to me. I was not willing to risk it for someone who brought with him something so dark and disturbing. I didn't know if those souls had been there before he lived there or if he made them disappear. I blocked him on my cell phone and made sure I never saw him again. Now, when I pass by downtown and see that building from a distance, a shiver runs down my spine. I don't know if the women I saw are still trapped there, in that limbo of suffering. But I pray for them, even though I don't know if my words will reach anyone. I just hope that wherever they are, they find peace and that the supernatural disappears from that apartment.